$10 on the action figure aisle really doesn't go too far anymore, but there are some options out there. So I went to try to find what are some of the best $10 action figures out there, and then we're gonna rank them in terms of what I feel is the best value for the money, eventually crowning a winner to see who is the best $10 action figure still on store shelves. Just to set some ground rules, I know that toys can fluctuate in price, but I tried to zero in on the $10 manager suggested retail price for most of these figures. There was a few that were a little below that, but again, it's like in the same ballpark. There's some similar action features, similar sizes, things like that. So again, we're like at about the $10 thing. We might just be a little under, but we are not going over. The other thing is I tried to sample toys from different manufacturers. So I got things from Hasbro, of course. That actually takes up a bulk of all of the stuff that we're looking at. Jakks Pacific, Spin Masters, and Playmates. I tried to look for something in the Mattel range, action figure-wise, for $10, but the Jurassic Park stuff typically goes for more than the $10 price point. When it comes to evaluating each of the toys, I'm going to be looking at things like articulation, the quality, just how well it was put together, the accessories that come with it, and any other thing that is just kind of special about it, because every toy is a little different. Each manufacturer makes things in a different way, so let's just highlight some of those differences and see if any one of those combinations can really stand out in the $10 price point. So in terms of what we have Star Wars figures, we have DC figures, we have Marvel figures, we have Transformers, we also have Ninja Turtles, and we have something from Jakks Pacific, the World of Nintendo stuff. We start with some Star Wars. Here's an Ahsoka Tano from the new Star Wars line. These are $10 action figures. What you can see here is a very vintage-inspired action figure, I'm going to guess, is that this feels very Power of the Force, vintage Star Wars Kenner stuff. Just looking at it, I think we need to open this up, see how everything's put together, see how well Ahsoka articulates, and whether or not I feel like this is worth the $10. I do like the packaging on this. You can clearly see the figure in kind of a cool, artistic style. You see majority of the action figure in the bubble, and then on the back, not a whole lot there. I wish we would have seen some of the other action figures in the wave or in the line, but we don't. But you do get a sense of the actual figure herself, and I don't know if that's a digital render. Either case, it looks pretty good. It looks true to what we actually see on the front of the box. So without further ado, let's rip into our first $10 purchase. All right, as we get Ahsoka out here, there's a couple things that I'm noticing. This feels very Power of the Force. I'm getting some flashbacks into going to Target after counting my change meticulously and finding the buffest Luke Skywalker there is. There is just very basic 5 points of articulation here. There is a spot for a backpack or some kind of accessory, but we don't get one of those here. And I'm not too familiar with like all of the intricacies of Star Wars, but this part of her hair can move back and forth, so you're not sacrificing a whole lot of neck swivel there. That's a good feature. And then we have the really cool lightsabers, the white lightsabers that are semi-translucent. They're almost like opalescent in a way, which is kind of cool. And how well do these fit into her hands? I think that's going to be the biggest test of all. Okay, so the lightsaber fits in that hand really well. Let's see if her shorter lightsaber fits in the other hand really well. Yes. Yeah. And the cool thing about this figure, right, is that it comes with 2 lightsabers. When I was buying Power of the Force stuff as a kid, you'd only get 1 lightsaber. If it was Luke Skywalker, you'd get a blaster, maybe something like that. But 2 lightsabers in 1 action figure, that's pretty cool. The actual figure of Ahsoka, I feel, does a good job at capturing the figure in terms of like the live action version of Ahsoka really well. The quality, I feel, is pretty decent. I don't see like any sort of huge problems there. I love that there's 2 lightsabers. This is a fine figure. Like $10 for it though does seem a little steep, but you get a recognizable character that's done really well, that fits in with some other Star Wars stuff that has happened decades past. So, you know, I'm feeling pretty good about this one, but we'll see how I feel as we start opening more toys. From Spin Masters, we have this DC Batman. What's cool about this is that it comes with 3 mystery accessories. The other thing, too, that I see from the packaging is that Batman has a soft goods cape, which is always very exciting for me. I love soft good capes. To get to the accessories, there is a thumb press in the back. So let's open it up without further ado. Let's get our Batman free and see what's, oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting so many accessories. Okay, let's get these out. I'm guessing there's some rarity to these as well, but here's what I mean. Okay, so here we have a Batarang. This is a golden one. We have a sword, a very cool looking sword. It seems very Masters of the Universe inspired. And then we have this. What's cool about this is that you can clip it together. It's very clearly keyed in the back so that you can put these together. And now Batman has a shield because the other side has a hold for one of his hands. So here we have more than enough accessories for Batman to hold. I think that's going to encourage other people to buy more of these figures so that you have the ability to swap parts in total. I don't know if there's any sort of rarity based on the color of these. I'm guessing maybe, but let's open up the rest of the figure and see if there's anything explaining what I'm looking at with these accessories. Aha, yes, there is a little tiny package. This is going to give us some information. I love this because not only do you get to see other toys, maybe we get an explanation as to what we're actually looking at with the accessories. And yeah, what do we see? What do we have here? Okay, so here we have a tiny little poster with some very classic Batman characters, the heroes and the villains. And on the back, we get to see what else is going on here. So I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at here, but I'm looking at that Batman, the one that I have in my hand. It's saying that question mark Batarang, question mark sword, and it seems like the shield should have been gold. Not quite sure what this means, but at least it shows us some of the other action figures in the wave. All right, I've got Batman out of his bubble. The one thing that's a little disappointing right out of the box is the cape is really cheap. It almost feels like a ribbon you use to tie like a birthday gift, a Christmas present, or something like that. This isn't the highest quality soft goods cape, but again, we're hovering around a $10 price point with these things. I'm not quite sure what else there is to say about that. I didn't think we were going to be getting some, very heavy cloak material, but maybe something a little better than this. I mean, it's like super see-through. But immediately what I'm noticing that this does differently than the Ahsoka from the Star Wars stuff is that we have shoulder articulation, it can move out. We have elbow articulation, and we also have some knee articulation. Those are some really nice features to have at this price point. And the other thing too is that the legs are on ball joints so that Batman can do some splits. That's articulation-wise, this is a better figure. This is a better figure than the Ahsoka Tano one. And based on what I'm seeing here is that Batman, we'll give him a sword and shield. How about that? I don't know what Batman uses a sword and shield, but it's this one. Okay, I wasn't expecting to like this as much as I did, but that's a pretty cool accessory feature. This is something you can definitely see putting in the hands of an imaginative kid that would have all kinds of epic battles with Batman. And the other cool thing about this is that while I'm looking at this, I can already see some different play patterns emerging. So if another character were to kick his shield, it could break off and then Batman would be left with half a shield. There's some really cool things accessory-wise going on with this DC Batman. I'm not crazy about the cape, but everything else so far to me, again, I'm trying to think of like quality-wise, it doesn't feel as solid as the Ahsoka Tano, but I think what it makes up for it and that makes it a better figure is all of the articulation. The fact that it can move the elbows, the shoulders, the head, the soft goods cape, not the best, but at least it's there. And more accessories than he can hold means that, I'm really digging this Batman, and I'm gonna put it above Ahsoka Tano. Now what we have here is a Marvel Avengers style action figure. This is Thanos. He is a big, beefy guy. He also comes with the Infinity Gauntlet, complete with the Infinity Stones. Although it doesn't look like he has articulating fingers to snap, which is good. Good for the heroes in the lineup here. But this feels very, very similar to the Star Wars action figure that I opened, the Ahsoka Tano one. The difference here being is that we don't have an image of Thanos on the side here. It's just a bunch of the other Avengers, which is cool, but like, I like the fact that the Star Wars one highlighted the character that you're purchasing so that if you're looking through the pegs, you can clearly see who you're buying. On the back, very similar to the Star Wars one again, here we have our picture of Thanos. I would have liked to seen this on the reverse and then just maybe flip those around. That would be a good change. But this is a $10 figure. Let's open him up. I can already start to see some differences from the Star Wars figure without any sort of articulation on this. He looks rather lifeless, very still. But what this does differently than the Star Wars one is we have some elbow articulation. It's a very stiff joint, but we do get the ability for Thanos to move his arm to, it's not even really like a 90-degree angle, maybe slightly more than a 45-degree one. It does give him some life, and his shoulders can move. And if you're wondering this, I don't know what, like his shoulder armor is a little bit flexible. So when you do move his arms up, it can't really get in the way too much. You can see here it flexing quite a bit compared to this side. So if you're gonna be storing this figure, just mind how flexible these are because it might interfere and deform over time. If he stays like this for a long time, I would worry about that. Does he have any swivel at the hips? He does not. His legs do kick out, which is great. And he does have a very, very slight bend at the knee. Not a whole lot, but it is something. And his accessory, the Infinity Gauntlet with all the stones on there, fits over his fist. It's not a replacement for his fist. You don't socket it out and then put this one in, which is a cool feature. So if you are playing with your Marvel superheroes and things like that, to have Infinity Gauntlet that can work on other characters might be kind of like a fun story to tell with these things. And his, as you see, his head does move a little bit. So you can get like a nice evil Thanos grimace. If I'm going to compare this to the other two things that are in the line so far, I'm going to put this probably last. And the reason I say that is because the limited articulation, the fact that it's there but it doesn't move too far, is kind of a tease. Now, I wouldn't say the Ahsoka does more things than this Thanos. Having the ability to move the elbows and the knees is really good, but I feel the Ahsoka figure is just doing more with less. And then the Batman figure is just over-indexing with a bunch of accessories, the soft goods cape and things like that. So Thanos here, there's not a whole lot to talk about. Like, he's cool. There's like some cool metallic look to the blue on his armor, but he's just not that exciting. For the $10, I was maybe expecting a little more from this Thanos figure. And while the Infinity Gauntlet is pretty cool, it's not enough to make up for some of the other things that were just barely there that I felt like could have been pushed just a little bit further. And how that would have impacted the price, I don't know. But one thing, before we move on to the next thing, I gotta try this Infinity Gauntlet on like a 6-inch scale action figure. Okay, Baroness has the Infinity Gauntlet now. That doesn't really fit too well. Here we have Samus. This is by Jakks Pacific. I think this is like part of the world of Nintendo figures. And the front of the package looks great. I mean, here we have a very classic Samus. We can see here's a suit variant of Samus. This is the Phazon suit. And on the back, we have the images of Samus here and what kind of action features there are a little bit. Not a whole lot of accessories. We see there's the morph ball. So that's kind of a separate, I don't really know if this is like a separate action figure. I wouldn't say it is because it's literally a sphere. But this Samus right here, there looks to be some cool modes of articulation. There's at least a waist swivel, so let's take this figure out of the box. Here's our Samus out of the packaging. One thing immediately that I noticed is that the waist swivel is extremely loose. That doesn't bode well. There is some impressive articulation here. Again, this is a $10 action figure, so what we're getting in terms of the ability to move the Samus around is impressive, but I'm really worried about this waist swivel being so loose. I'm just like barely touching this and it's way going overboard here. The crazy thing about a $10 action figure from Jakks Pacific is you get double jointed elbows. The knees are double jointed too. And is the same for the cannon arm? No, the cannon arm isn't double jointed, which I think makes sense because in terms of how Samus operates, that cannon is pretty static, but there are butterfly joints. I gotta get really close so you can see the butterfly joints working here. and they work phenomenally well. I haven't even seen some of the 6-inch scale action figures have this level of butterfly joint that works. The head does kind of swivel a little bit, not a whole lot. And there is some ankle rotation too. The problem that you're running into is there's some armor right there at the top of the boot, which makes it very difficult. The pauldrons on Samus do move, so that the more that you rotate and pose her, you're gonna get a little better range of motion because these pauldrons are moving, which I think was a smart move, because this would have been a super limiting factor, especially when you're doing things like double jointed elbows, double jointed knees for $10. I think that's pretty impressive. This, I think, is immediately going to shoot to the top of the list. I know that the waist swivel is really unfortunate, but the fact that we're getting this accessory, the morph ball, and that we're getting all of this articulation, we're getting all of this expression with the figure, that is phenomenal value for $10. I can look over one of the loose joints on this. Yeah, I'm really impressed with this Jakks-Pacific figure. Now we have one of the Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures. There's a lot going on here. This is by Playmates. They have the Turtles license to make these figures, and they've had it for a long time. So all the ones up there, Playmates, and now this is based on some of the newer cartoons. I think this is on Paramount Plus or something like that. We'll get a look at this. This is a MechaZoid. I'm not too familiar with this character at all. But if we look at the packaging, we clearly see what we're getting. We get some like crazy accessories to mix and match. And you can see exactly what that means. We can put on different accessories that don't necessarily go with the figure, but they're using the whole mutant part to really lean into creating wacky combos. Because let's face it, when we had the 1980s Turtles, we were swapping parts on those like crazy. And then you can see here just what that means, how wild you can get with things. And then you see the other mutants from the line. This is a great packaging. And for $10, I'm already super impressed with this. Let's get it open. I'm kind of excited about this one. And here we have MechaZoid out of the box. We just have a ton of accessories that come with this figure. You have this cape that removes. We have this figure that has all of these ball joints all over the place for decent articulation. It doesn't have any movement at the elbows. It doesn't have any movement at the knees or the ankles, things like that. But you do get a nice range of motion with the ball joints and things like that. So far, really impressed. And that's just the base figure. That doesn't even include all the accessories that I have. So let's just go over them really quick. So the first, we have Donatello's head, which comes with the glasses on him, everything. We have one of Michelangelo's left arms. And not only that, but there's paint application on the hand as a hand wrap, but then the elbow pads have that touch of metallic paint. On the back, it does look a little sloppy, but the fact that they're even getting this to highlight that mix and match mutation kind of play pattern is cool. Now, I'm guessing these other accessories go with the figure. So we have the sword. It looks like Leonardo's sword, maybe a little bit, but it's maybe repurposed here for MechaZoid. And then we have these parts right here. I'm not exactly sure what they are. They might go together like this and be some kind of weapon or, so yeah, I don't know. Let's try to like remove this so we can this socket on right here? Oh yeah, so this totally works on MechaZoid. I'm not quite sure why you'd want to do this. There's just a ton of options here. This is crazy. We have different options for MechaZoid here. It's wild how much you get for $10 with this action figure. The quality of it, again, we kind of have a similar problem with Samus, is that the waist movement is the loosest part of this figure. I don't know how that's going to hold up over time, but with popping these parts in and out, it feels good. I don't get a sense that these are going to fall out without any sort of extra force. Maybe over time that'll happen, but for the initial look at this character, really impressed with just how much you get for $10. I'm really on the fence between, is this better than Samus or not? I'm leaning towards yes, because we get so many more accessories with it, and I feel like the quality is roughly around the same. So we get a little less articulation, but we're getting more accessories with it. And honestly, I'm not missing too much with the articulation because this is already such a stylized figure that it's not going to detract, I feel, from the overall quality of the action figure. So Samus, sorry, but MechaZoid's just a little bit better. Now the final one on the list here is a core class Transformers. This is Boulder Crash from the Infernac universe. Basically a Rock Lord, which is why I picked him up, because Rock Lords are cool. I gotta get him out of the packaging. Transformers, I don't know, they feel like they have an unfair advantage when we're hitting this $10 price point, because essentially you get two toys in one. You have a vehicle or an animal, and then you have the robot. So let's get him out and see exactly what this core class Boulder Crash is about. Now here we have Boulder Crash in its robot form. We have the instructions to transform him into the vehicle form, which is a motorcycle. So let's do that too, and then we'll talk about Boulder Crash afterwards. Now, I think when it comes to Transformers, for the most part, the $10 price point is tough, right? You have these core class figures. When we have figures that are built specifically for the core class, something like Boulder Crash here, I think it works really well. That said, this is the smallest figure out of all of them. But I think that there are some definite areas where the Transformers at the $10 price point is a better action figure than some other options. For me personally, it's the two modes of play, the vehicle and the robot mode. So this is going to immediately jump the line quite a bit. The whole concept of Transformers is super clever, and it's hard to deny that this is just a really good toy. In fact, it's been going strong for a very, very long time, spanning decades. But kind of like Lego, Transformers is just an expensive brand. There's a whole lot of rights that go into this. It's a whole bunch of corporate stuff. But like, honestly, when it comes to the figure, you're paying for something that's typically smaller. So if you want something impressive, if you want something to stand out, you might not necessarily pull from the Transformers. So for that reason alone, even though this is probably my favorite figure out of the entire bunch, I'm going to put Boulder Crash from Transformers right in the middle of Batman and Samus. So to recap, we have at the bottom Thanos from the Marvel line, then we have Ahsoka Tano from the Star Wars line, then we move up to Batman from the DC lines, and then we have our core class Transformer, Boulder Crash, Samus, and then finally the winner, MechaZoid from Ninja Turtles, which by far impressed me the absolute most. So what do you think? What do you think is the best value for $10 in the action figure aisle? Please let me know. And if you like this look at how far your dollar goes in the toy aisle, please hit that subscribe button, because I talk about toys. I talk about blasters, collectibles, all that kind of good stuff. And I've got more videos like this one planned. That's all I know about spending $10 in the toy aisle. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.